Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today. So, good morning, friends. It's great to have you joining us this morning here at New Church Live. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. And today is kind of an interesting service. So the background of the service is my dear friend Curtis Childs, an amazing speaker. He was supposed to be on stage today speaking, but he's unable to speak. He has laryngitis. So he's unable to speak today, so this was sort of a thrown together at the last minute sermon. But it actually came to a really good point. And it came to something that I think we all need to remember going into the new year, which is the idea of patience. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you want something specific, how can we be patient with other people as a reflection of how patient God is with us? So I know that in life, as we come to the new year, we kind of sit in this place. We sit in this place and think about all the New Year's resolutions we're going to have. And even I was caught into that magical thinking a bit yesterday. Oh yeah, these are the 3 things I'm never going to do again in the new year. And I'm just sure that we could rid ourselves of all of that instantaneously. Because human beings, we have this proclivity, and it comes from a good place, I think, that we really want change to happen in a revolutionary way. We want it to be immediate. We want to make the decision, and then from there on out, it's different. But is that how change works in our lives? I don't think so. Change is much more evolutionary. It's much more a matter of time, much more a law of the farm than the law of the internet. I think about the fact that in our household, we got a beautiful little puppy dog this Christmas season. And watching the puppy yesterday, the puppy has decided that the best chew toy is the remote control for the TV. Now, it's college bowl season, so that's messing with something very precious for me. And it's like wanting, I could catch myself just wanting this dog to just be fully grown up, for that not to be a problem. And I know that it won't be a problem 6 months from now, but it certainly is now. And how can we allow those problems in our life to just be just what they are, where they are? Here's the challenge. Let's move forward in a way that is more evolutionary than revolutionary. That gift of patience. That gift of patience. Because that's what God does. God gently bends, he doesn't break. We're going to look at that really in a lot of depth today, how that bending takes place. So I want to start out with a question, as we often do here at New Church Live. We throw questions out there that people can answer. And the question for today is this: what is the gift of growing old? As we grow older, as we mature, you think of, even if you're 20, what's the gift of being 20 versus being 10? Or if you're 50, what's the gift of being 50 versus being 20? What do you see kind of as the gift of growing old? What has that gift been for you? Feel free to text that into me at 215-740-3662. That's 215-740-3662. Because we want to look at that and just look at that and kind of take those ideas of what we learn as we get older, what do we know as we get older, and let's just pull those down and say, yeah, there's some spiritual reasons to this. And as well, there's just a way we can use that to color the year ahead. We're far more open. We're far willing to be part of God's gentle, slow work as it moves forward. Far more willing to just put ourselves into that beautiful stream of divine providence. So friends, I want to welcome you this morning to New Church Live.
I was 7 years old, Mama told me, get yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old. It was a big, big world, but we thought we were bigger, pushing each other to the limits, we were learning quicker. By 11 we were smoking, drinking, burning liquor. Never rich, so we were out to make the steady figure. Once I was 11 years old, my daddy told me, go get yourself a wife or you'll be lonely. Once I was 11 years old. I always had that dream like my daddy before me. So I started writing songs, I started writing stories. Something about that glory just always seemed to bore me, cause only those I really love will ever really know me. Once I was 20 years old, my story got told for the morning sun when life was lonely. Once I was 20 years old. I only see my goals, I don't believe in failure, cause I know the smallest voices, they can make it major. I got my boys with me, at least those in favor. And if we don't before I leave, I hope I see you later. Once I was 30 years old, my story got told. I was writing about everything I saw before me. Once I was 30 years old. Soon we'll be 40 years old. Songs have been sold. We traveled around the world and we're still roaming. Soon we'll be 40 years old. I'm still learning about life. My woman bore children for me, so I can sing them all my songs and I can tell them stories. Most of my boys are with me, some are out still seeking glory, and some I had to leave behind. My brother, I'm still sorry. Soon we'll be 60 years old. Daddy got 61. Remember life and then your life becomes a better one. I made a man so happy when I wrote a letter once. I hope my children come to visit once or twice a month. Soon I'll be 60 years old. But I think the world is colder, but I have a lot of children that can warm me. Soon I'll be 60 years old. Oh, oh. Once I was 7 years old, Mama told me, go make yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old.
Thank you. Well, the musicians have the day off, so people probably don't realize, but that's actually a video. And great job there, Marcus. What a beautiful song with your brother there. So friends, some beautiful things that people shared. And this is to kind of give you the connotation of what we're talking about today. See, New Church theology is incredibly optimistic. Incredibly optimistic. I mean, so much of life people break into is humanity all good or is humanity all evil, and then we make decisions based off of that. In New Church, we don't kind of get into that either or. We just say, well, humanity, we're human. We have this mixture of light and dark in our lives. And each one actually is there, and actually, the darkness is to help us get back to the light. So even the darkness has its place. And this is the part that I love. I love this. Very similar to the Quaker tradition, we believe each one of you has an inmost that is precious, that is connected to God, and no matter what, is connected to heaven. It's inmost. On top of that, we get layered these beautiful, what's called in New Church theology remains, these beautiful concepts, these beautiful memories of childhood and young adulthood that kind of feed into that. And then we go through life as life will happen, and there'll be challenges to it. There'll be this, there'll be that, there'll be the other thing. But that's to get rid of our natural, corporeal will, that part of us that is addicted to things, that part of us that is compulsive, is to get rid of that so that we can come home. So that we can come back to who God created us from all time to be. And that's what God is doing. Yes, we do have our role of cooperating with it, but God's I firmly believe God's gonna win in the end. And gently bend our lives back around. Again, spirituality as the art of homecoming. And that takes patience, friends. It doesn't happen overnight. Listen to some of these beautiful responses. Gift of growing old, being able to see some things fading out of my life that I'm glad to see go. I love that idea. They're fading out. As the song goes, I wish I knew then what I know now, but I'm blessed to know what I know now, and that there is more to experience and learn. One thing is I appreciate and treasure those in my life more than I ever did before. Beautifully said. What is the gift of getting older? Knowing that people, no matter the age, can be going through phases and that they are not stuck there. Boy, that's really important. That's a big part of being patient with others. Allowing myself and them the chance to grow and change. That's where we don't put people in boxes. One great gift is forgiveness, which comes so easily now. And this one brought a smile. At 73, I have the gift of having to go to the bathroom every 3 hours. It's a very, very human experience there. I love those folks because all those sort of have this connotation of patience, right? This connotation of this gentle waiting. Those also, as the Old Testament goes, those also serve who stand and wait. That idea of waiting and patience, and that's how God can work. That is how God works with us. Now, let's take a look at some specifics this way. Well, one of the things I want to start with is that God's always going to reach us where we are. He's always going to be coming to our life as our life is at that moment. I mean, it's in the New Testament, we see that with the disciples. So many of them were called literally from work. They're literally at work. They're totally embedded in their lives. That's where the call happens. I think there's great wisdom in that. And we see as well this other part that God calls us where we are, calls us from where we are, and then there's this gentle bending that takes place over the course of our life and really over the course of all eternity. So I want to start with this line from the Bible. And again, planning this service sort of last minute, going through and not quite poking and just throwing a dart at the Bible, but looking through what we've been reading through with 10 minutes of calm and just oh, there's an interesting passage. And here's a short passage for you. So Abraham, the patriarch of both the Islamic, Jewish, and Christian faiths, prevalent, big stories about him in the book of Exodus in the Bible. And with this story of Abraham, as he's given this covenant, as he's shown where God's going to shows him where God is going to lead him, God proclaims who he is. God proclaims who God is. And he uses this very short sentence, I am God Shaddai. What does that picture? I mean, it's just a little line, and the fact is, I missed it. I've read this line a million times, right? But missed exactly what that meant. And we're going to look at what that pictures from a very deep level. This is from the book Secrets of Heaven, part of our canon here in the new church. And it's a beautiful concept because that God Shaddai, that was what Abraham called God at that time. So here he's saying, this is your God. I am your God. And he uses the name that he would have been familiar with. Shaddai. There's a whole lot we could talk about and debate about in terms of what that means in terms of evangelization and how God works, etc. But it's a brilliant little piece there. That idea, God really reaching back to where Abraham was, using a name of God that Abraham was comfortable with, was familiar with. And this is what Swedenborg had to say about that. The Lord wishes not to hastily disrupt, let alone instantly annihilate the religion we were brought up on. To do so would be to tear it out by its roots and so destroy the reverent devotion and worship so deeply in us. The Lord never breaks, but bends. That's so important. I want to read it again. The Lord never breaks, but bends. This reverent devotion rooted in us from our childhood is by nature unable to survive violence, only gentle, merciful bending. That line really struck me. I mean, just a little bit of an aside there. It's in our DNA that we are not going to change if something is violently sort of shifted in us, if there's a violence that takes place, a violent sort of uprooting. Love for others is the soil that we grow in. Oh, so beautiful. So that idea, friends, of gentle, merciful bending, that is how God operates. And it's a beautiful idea, again, this passage, because it both has applications for how churches and religions work and for how we are to work as individuals. Now, obviously, churches in a corporate sense, I think we have to be very leery of anything that smacks of like, we are here to change you. We are here to somehow remake you into something totally different. Are there times when someone's in an extreme disorder in their life and they need to kind of let that whole glass of water in the face, come to? Think, yeah, there's those moments. But I would argue those moments are a lot less than what we would imagine. We're much better off embracing this idea of a gentle, merciful bending and to create churches, synagogues, and mosques that do just that. I know my wife and I took a tour recently of a mosque about 4 or 5 months ago. And the man who gave us the tour, he was so gracious. There was no proselytizing. There was no trying to convince us of anything. All he wanted to do? All he wanted to do was share. That's it. All he wanted to do was share. And there was such beauty and grace in that. And it's true as well, friends, on a personal level, that again, with people, we have to see it as this gentle, merciful bending. And the word mercy, the Hebrew to that, I mentioned this a lot, the old school Hebrew of that is womb-like mother love. I love that idea. It's just this gentle holding that can start to change things over time. Now we can see, again, where sometimes we can get off base. And here I'm going to leap into the New Testament. So we've looked at this Old Testament story. Now we're shifting into a New Testament story. This is from Matthew 7. And this is Jesus talking here. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, do we not prophesy in your name? And in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles. Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. It's such a powerful line here, friends, because it just has this basic dichotomy. It's clear when you look at this passage that what they were talking about, what the clergy at that time was talking about when they would say, Lord, Lord, and then they would prophesy, drive out demons, perform miracles, they were talking about power. That's the way true religion was known. That's the way our spiritual lives work, that it was all a power equation. And that if you want to become more powerful, spirituality, religion, faith, belonging to a certain denomination or a sect, that's the way to do it. And notice even the way these people are talking about it. They're talking about religion in the way it had empowered them over the things they had been able to do with it. They've been able to invoke God's name and look at all I'm able to do because of this. God's interest is walking with all of us. That's very different than, hey, world, look at me. In any way that we practice that, hey, world, look at me. That idea of Emmanuel, of God with us, of this gentle walking, it moves the whole equation away from power to the equation of love, to a much richer, more powerful equation. Can we see how that works out there in the world? And here I want to talk about Father Gregory Boyle, who's fasting. We're thinking about a video clip from him, but I want to describe it instead. Father Gregory Boyle is out in San Diego. You can Google him, watch some of his videos. He's fascinating human being. He works with gang members. And, is considered to sort of be the guy who's figured out a few things around how to work with gang members. He's established a nonprofit called Homeboy Industries. And Father Greg talks about kind of his evolution, and it's not entirely different from what you folks saw. It's his evolution of how he saw these things moving, how he saw his own ministry moving over the course of his life. I believe he's in his 70s now. And he said a lot of the time when he gets introduced, people will introduce him and they'll say, he runs the most successful gang intervention program in the country. And he sort of takes a little umbrage at that. He said that's upsetting to him when people start to put within what he's trying to do, they put this contest of success or failure on it. And he offered some observations that I think go right along with this idea of patience, this idea of a gentle spirituality, this idea of keeping the edges soft. Here's what he said. He said the shift he's trying to make, I want to become less outcome obsessed and more faithful to loving, shifting from evidence-based outcomes to practice-based evidence. We see, friends, I'm going to ask you just to hold that up there, Marcus, for a minute. First off, that outcome obsessed. You know, that outcome obsession, that's what these people, when we looked at that passage from Matthew, that's what they were talking about. Like, Lord, look at me prophesy, look at me throw out demons, look at me do this, look at me that. It's all these outcomes. And it's easy in our age to really believe that the outcomes of church are the most significant thing. A, B, C. Attendance, building, congregation, congregants. But that's the way a lot of people really see it, that it's all right, contributions. Attendance, buildings, and contributions. Those are the big three. And they're all very outcome-based. Now, is that wrong to have outcomes? No, it's not wrong to have outcomes. But they'll lead us down a path that may, over time, pull us away from the mission of what we're really trying to do. Here's an example, a simple one that Father Greg talked about that was really striking to me. Years and years ago, when he first started his gang intervention program, what he got big into was negotiating peace treaties between two gangs. So you have gang A, gang B. He would race in, sort of be the hero, help them come together, sign a peace treaty. They weren't going to kill each other anymore. Guess how well that worked? And what he realized was because he was so outcome obsessed with these peace treaties, he was missing the big picture. The reason why these gangs were doing what they were doing is not because they hated each other. It was because they were struggling with this, the lethal absence of hope. That was the real problem, the lethal absence of hope. And by coming in very outcome-based, we're going to get this group to do this, we'll sign a treaty, here it is, everyone sign a bottom line. By doing that, he actually felt like he was breathing life and legitimacy into the gangs where there was no legitimacy. It's not like this was one form of legitimate government, this was another form of legitimate government, let's get together and negotiate. He was giving them a validity that they didn't need to have. He needed to move upstream to really deal with the core of the problem, which was the lethal absence of hope. Now that gets to that second part of that quote. That second part where it talks about evidence-based outcomes to practice-based evidence. I love that last phrase, and it took reading it over a bunch of times to really get it and really dig into what that could mean for our spiritual lives. It's this, friends, and I think this is so important. The practice is the evidence. The practice is the evidence. It's very easy when we get into this overly concerned about outcomes. And it's not that they're unimportant, but they're a means to an end. We get into this over concern about outcomes. All of a sudden, love becomes very transactional. Because I'll get more of an outcome with this group than an outcome with that group. And it becomes very transactional. It's all about the outcome. That's not what God's asking. God's asking that you find the spiritual practices that you're called to, and that could be prayer, it could be a form of service, it could be any number of things, hopefully a combination of things, and that you just do it. You just do it. That's enough evidence in and of itself that there's a God. Just do it. The outcome will be what the outcome will be. There are people who you're going to love who will love you back. There are people you will love who will not love you back. You can be the kindest driver on 95 and someone's still going to yell at you. Go back to the practice and think about what is that for you, and allow that practice to be the evidence. Just please let that sink in. If you're at home, write it down. If you're in here or you're watching online, type it on your phone. Let the practice be the evidence. So then we have to figure out what the practice is, and there's so many of them. I mean, we could do a whole series based on spiritual practices. And one of them, I think, for today, just coming full circle, is that idea of patience. And that idea of really practicing, making patience a practice. And again, I love what that one person said, that, yeah, it allows other people to change, and it also allows me to change. That idea of that gentle peace. And one of the interesting things with this, folks, here is that it doesn't like get broadcast out into, and this is sort of hard to get across or communicate in the right way. It's hard to get across in this big way. So let's go back to Father Gregory Boyle. He said, all right, it's the lethal absence of hope is the problem. So how do we solve that? Well, he said one of the big changes for him, and this is so much the core of the Christian message, was really taking it one person at a time. Really taking it one person at a time. Now, what does that mean? Well, here's a question for you. How many times in the New Testament does Jesus heal a whole group all at once? Take a guess. 0. Jesus never heals an entire group. What he does is he steps in and he heals here. And then he steps over here and he heals there. And then he steps in with this person and he heals them. That's such a beautiful spiritual model. And Gregory Boyle was talking about, like, yeah, you know what? He could not go and like solve the gang problem. He couldn't go and get this gang to be different. But what he could do is he could pick this person and could show up in their life patiently with this gentle bending and watch over time God do God's work. And through that, start to get at that root problem of the lethal absence of hope. So as we look at that, friends, and as we go into our next song here, just think about what that means for you. You know, a question I was thinking about is just think, friends, in 2025, you know, who made you, or 2024, excuse me, who made your life better this past year? And then take that, and with this spirit of gentle bending, with this spirit of patience, this spirit of reaching people where they are, as they are, think about moving that forward. So the question, who made your life better in 2024? And maybe this, and ask the question with great humility, whose life might you be able to make a little better in 2025? And when we come back, we're going to go to a very specific way of really, really holding on to this patience, this compassion, and this empathy as we enter the new year.
If I wrote a note to God, I would speak what's in my soul. I'd ask for all the hate to be swept away and for love to overflow. If I wrote a note to God, I'd pour my heart out on each page. I'd ask for wars to end and for peace to mend this world. I'd say, give us the strength to make it through. Help us find love, 'cause love is overdue. And it looks like we haven't got a clue. Need some help from you. Grant us the faith to carry on. Give us hope when it seems all hope is gone. 'Cause it seems like so much is going wrong on this road we're on. If I wrote a note to God, I would say what's on my mind. I'd ask for wisdom to let compassion rule this world and heal these times. If I wrote a note to God, I'd say, please help us find our way. And all the bitterness, put some tenderness in our hearts. I'd say, give us the strength to make it through. Help us find love, 'cause love is overdue. And it looks like we haven't got a clue. Need some help from you. Grant us the faith to carry on. Give us hope when it seems all hope is gone. 'Cause it seems like so much is going wrong on this road we're on. No, we can't do this on our own. So give us the strength to make it through. Help us find love, 'cause love is overdue. And it looks like we haven't got a clue. Need some help from you. Grant us the faith to carry on. Give us hope when it seems all hope is gone. 'Cause it seems like so much is going wrong on this road we're on. If I wrote a note to God.
So somebody texted in, and I love this text message because I think it really is true what this person is sharing here. They said, change is mostly slow, but sometimes takes a big jump just to keep it interesting. I think that really is true. There's a great paradox about spirituality, which is that slower is faster, which is kind of interesting. Slower is faster. That idea of salvation, and probably a word I'm a little more comfortable with, is this idea of healing. This idea of healing over time, art of homecoming. I like those phrases a little more than just salvation, because we live in a culture that there's you're not saved one minute and then you are saved the next, and I don't see that in the Bible. I think salvation is this process. And it's not just a process over the years we have, it's a process through all eternity. We've got this beautiful model, Jesus, who shows us how to do it, who models all the ways to do it. Jesus being like God with skin on, God with us, Lord God, Savior, Jesus Christ, who walked with us in these things. And the beautiful part, friends, is that as we take this journey, as we take these steps, it is, as this person said, pretty fascinating to watch, because sometimes it does, all of a sudden, like a bunch of stuff will click. On family vacations, we love doing puzzles. Or I should say, I love doing puzzles, and the kids love helping. And it's just fascinating how you can be looking at a puzzle, for those of you who do puzzles, you can be looking at a puzzle for like an hour, getting one piece, two pieces, and then all of a sudden like 20 pieces come together. I think that's so much of how life works. All of a sudden, a bunch of stuff comes together. All of a sudden, all these little pieces that didn't quite make sense, that felt like just didn't fit, all of a sudden, we get a sense of like, oh yeah, here it is. And God gives us the ability to see that, to experience that, to be part of that, and to love that. Now let's come back to Gregory Boyle again so we can really pull it down to like, well, what could this look like in our lives? Like, how can we actually live this idea of patience, this idea of a gentle bending? One of the things that was very striking was this idea of seen versus watched. Coming back to Father Greg, they were doing an interview. I was watching one of his online interviews, and they were interviewing some of the people he had helped. And they said, yeah, what shifted our life was we finally felt seen and not watched. When you look at gang members in the LA area, they're all tattooed up. I mean, a big part of Homeboy Industries actually is tattoo removal, which is kind of interesting. And Father Greg tells this very funny story of this guy who had this big old swear word right across his forehead and was a little mystified why he wasn't getting a job. And you think about those people, right? And you think about the look and the challenge that people would have. And anywhere they went, they felt like they were constantly being watched. They could never be anything different but who they were. Now, did they play a role in that? Absolutely. And of course there's a space for accountability. Absolutely. But you can see where there's like a doom loop there. Where you're watching makes them feel more on the outs, them feeling more on the outs makes them more prone to certain behaviors. Being prone to those certain behaviors will make it so that they need to be more watched. You can see how all that stuff just creates this kind of this vicious cycle that just keeps on going and going and going and going. And then there's this part. Getting rid of that lethal absence of hope. Where one by one, they finally feel seen. Just sit there for a second. They finally feel seen. What's that? What must that be like? What must that be like to finally be seen for who you actually really are? You know, to have somebody see beyond the tattoos, beyond the baggy clothes, beyond the this, beyond the that, and to really see you as a human being, made in the very image and likeness of God. That kinship. I think that's the way God sees us, right? Like, God isn't interested in watching. He's interested in seeing. And when he looks at any one of us, he looks right through all that external garbage, and you could use a different word there. He looks right through it, right to our heart, right to that inmost. Right to that part we started on. It's why I think T.S. Eliot's words are so powerful. You know, that we'll leave home and then we'll return there and, quote, know the place for the first time. That's that art of homecoming, because that's how God sees us. It may be one of the biggest gifts we can offer, friends, is to really work at seeing other people. Not as a corporate entity, not as a group, because that's not how healing happens. But just as a person. You with no agenda. But the amazing part, friends, is when we really see each other, that 100% of the time will gently bend other people's lives to the good. It may take a long time. I think with some of these things, we don't get this sorted out in this life. I think that's for the next life. But we definitely see that because, friends, when we do that, when we see people, it's based on empathy. It's based on love. It's based on appreciation. It's based on curiosity. That passage from Matthew where the Pharisees were saying, Lord, Lord, I want my ticket into heaven. There's none of that. None of those statements, is it about empathy? Is there anything about love? Is there anything about appreciation? Is there anything about curiosity? There's none of that. There's just, look at me and what I've done. How does that look as a practice? I don't know how it looks in your life, but I have a feeling that it's really important for us to keep trying to do that again and again. Because, friends, love, 1 Corinthians 13, we did a whole sermon on this about 6 months ago. 1 Corinthians 13, which many of you know from weddings, which I get asked to read at almost every wedding I do. It starts out with this beautiful line. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love keeps no record. And even if we just start with that little bit, love is patient. What if that is the very definition of love, is patience? Maybe we could live that a little bit more into the year ahead. Because I think a lot of the time in our human nature, we consider this to be a problem. We get stuck with this choice, but we don't have to choose between belief in a powerful God or a loving God. We don't have to choose that. I love World War II history. That's why Hitler hated Christianity. You couldn't belong to the SS if you were a Christian. Because he considered Christians as worshiping this God of weakness. That wasn't the God of mythology that he wanted people to follow. In other words, himself. But we're freed from that. We're freed from that now. Jesus freed us. Because Jesus clearly shows the power and love go hand in hand. You want to be powerful? Be loving. You want to be powerful? Be loving and patient. You want to be powerful? Be loving, patient, kind, see other people. Because that power won't be about you or your accomplishments or what you're going to pull off in the next year. It'll be about the very best of humanity. The very best of what you can be for your families, for your marriages, for your relationships, for your communities. About being the very best angels of your nature that come through and get to be witnessed by all those people that create ripples and really do start to change the world. But it's done humbly. Just out of commitment to basic practices and letting the outcomes take care of themselves. So, friends, on behalf of New Church Live, we wish you all the very best in the new year. 2024 had its blessings, had its breakings. 2025 is going to be the same. And no matter what, let's keep on doing the loving thing. Let's keep on keeping first things recognizably first. Amen. What we're going to do now, friends, is we're going to close this service with a little prayer and a little meditative prayer, and then we'll go to our last song. So please join me. Lord, thank you for your presence here today. Thank you for bringing us together again, and thank you for bringing us through this year. As we look forward to 2025 ahead, Lord, we know it will be a year that had blessed parts, that has broken parts. But allow us, Lord, to just maybe hold on to a few things that can help guide our way. Help give us enough light to just take the next step. And here, Lord, as well, give us patience in the year ahead, knowing that things in your time are perfect in a sense. Perfect in that they last and that they have meaning and that they're allowed to take root and they're allowed to grow in our lives, even when we don't see it. And even when we don't see it in others, that your work is still there, present with them. Thank you, Lord, for being that presence in our lives, the love in our hearts, and the care in our souls. Hear your prayer. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. Blessings on the week and the year ahead, friends.
We're going to close with an original song by the Funky T. This is Desire to Inspire. Let's groove.
Thank you guys. Have a great week.